Yes, this is a totally different idea, but it was always one of my favourites and my children's favourites too, because it meant that I didn't have to do anything and they did all the work. So that was a really good game. I'd sit down with a cup of tea. It was usually on their bed because that's generally the room that had most of their toys in. And I always used to say to my parents, this was what I'd call one of my no effort toys, which meant that children, to say, children did all the work and I just sat there and communicated with them. Now what it requires ultimately is 2 dice. These are not normal dice that you find in games. They haven't got numbers on. They're homemade dice and they're large because children have tiny hands. Dice in commercial games are not appropriate for small children. So I used to make my own die. What actually happened was that because I lived in the Middle East when my children were young, we had no access to dice, so my husband bought some wood and made some cubes, cut some cubes up. But of course you don't, and then I used them to make them into whatever dice I wanted to, whether they had numbers on, colours on, or whatever. But for this game, first of all, you just need a dice which has colours on. The 4 primary colours, red, blue, yellow and green, and 2 others. Now, because you won't have access to wood and things like that, I then put my mind to thinking, how could we make some dice? So, my dice is going to be made out of an old tea box. But I also have this one here, because the dice that we're using only has to roll. It doesn't have to be equally weighted so that every side has the same chance of coming up. That's not important. Now this is just a little box that I got a piece of face cream out of. And that works quite well to make into a dice. This one, which was a box which had some spice in it, doesn't work, because ideally you want your box, whatever it is, to be as much like a cube. Find a cube. A dice. This dice is a cube. As much that as possible, and this is too elongated. So when you roll it or throw it, because you're going to be throwing it on the floor. When you throw it, it tends to always land with one of these large faces upright rather than these. So you lose the opportunity to get one of the options on the side of the dice. So what we're aiming to do is to have a dice and put a colour on each of the faces. These happen to be called faces. A dice has 6 faces, and so there's a red face, a blue, a yellow and a green, and an orange, and there's a brown one on this, but on another dice I had, which is the original one, was red, yellow, blue and green, brown and black. They must have been colours I chose for some reason. But this actually works okay. I've rolled that across, whoops, and it seems to roll all right. Out of view. I'll test it on the floor later to show you. So what we need to do is make our dice. Ideally you need 2, but which is why I've got 2 things. Now, if you haven't got a box like this, most people will have a box and tea. So I'm looking for my scissors. Where they are. There they are. So I'm going to make this into as much like a cube as I can, which just requires cutting it down those 4 sides there, or edges should I say, they're the edges, there. And then I'm just going to pop them over, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll have a little jig around to make sure that they are all about the same. Maybe a bit more there. And it doesn't have to be wonderful, right? And I'm now just going to cut this bit off. Do a little bit of jigging around to get it to fit properly. Don't know why it's not fitting properly, it doesn't matter, just tackle it with your scissors until it looks about all right. Now you can glue it down, or you can, I'm going to take that little extra bit off because that's just getting in the way. You can glue it down, or you can sellotape it. So just for ease, I'm going to, and for speed, I'm going to sellotape it. Right. There we are, there's your dice. Easy peasy. Except the sellotape didn't stick. So I'll try a bit more. Right, now we need our colours. Now because this isn't a white surface, you can't just, as this would be, but even then you've got writing on it, so you could colour on there. But I have looked through my magazines and cut out some bits of the primary colours, which are red, blue, orange and green. And for some reason I couldn't find a piece that had enough red on it, so that was done with felt pen. I did the orange and felt pen, and I've done one just white piece. And I'm just going to glue those on. So I'm going to glue those on there just very quickly for a moment so you can see. Doesn't matter which face I put it on. I would glue these down much more carefully. And the last one. Oh! glued the wrong side. Never mind. Right, so I now have a dice with a white side, a yellow side. I'm saying this incorrectly, aren't I? A white face, a yellow face, a red face, a blue face, a green face, and an orange face. So when I throw my dice, it will roll, and that's the white side showing. Well, it might be the blue side. I could do the same with this. I could stick colours on there, or felt pens, or stickers if you have them. You must use your 4 primary colours and then 2 others of your choice. I chose orange because there's a lot of toys which are made of orange, and white because white, again, there's a lot of white involved in toys. Now, this game requires you to be somewhere where your children have all their toys, or a certain number of their toys. Now, I don't have lots of children's toys anymore, so most of them are the loft, but I have just got a collection of things that we have to pretend are their children's, or your children's toys. So what you would do is your child would throw the dice, and it would be blue, come out blue, and you just say, can you find me something which is blue? So they'll bring you something which is blue, except it's not blue, it's green. So you'd say, gosh, that's a wonderful colour, that colour's green. Can you find me something else that's the same sort of colour, the same colour as green? Well, they might bring you this, which is also green, but they might bring you this, which is orange. Children are never wrong. All that happens is they don't understand. If they don't understand, it appears they're wrong, but they are not wrong. And if there's any language you remove from your, or any vocabulary you move from your language when you're working with children, it's, no, that's wrong. Very easy to say when they're doing something and you want to say, oh no, that's the wrong colour. What about, and then you might, because they don't know it's the wrong colour. If they bring you blue, it's because they know that that's blue. But if they don't know that that's blue, they don't recognise blue and blue, then they'll bring you anything. So you need to work on that and say, right, this is a lovely colour, this is green. Can you find me something else that might be green? Well, if they bring you the green, that's fine. You can say, because they might not recognise that is this is blue, but they recognise that these two colours are the same or similar. But if they don't, if they bring you another toy, because all they're focusing on the word is, can you bring me another toy? They'll bring you another toy, that's what they're focusing on. So you just talk to them about it and say, that's fantastic, that toy. It's an orange toy. This is a green toy. This is an orange toy. Shall we both together look for, there's a little bit of effort on your part, for another orange toy? So you could perhaps find the beaker, but focus on one colour at a time. Don't sort of say, well, let's have an orange toy, let's have a green toy. Just, they bought an orange toy, you focus on orange, right? Can we find a colour that looks like that on the dice? And they might say, they might choose that, and you say, well, yes, that's actually a yellow, that colour's yellow, and this is a yellow toy. They might choose that colour, this is a green, this, and just slowly by talking and playing the game, you might play this game over and over and over again before they actually are able to competently bring in the right colours. Most children are taught their colours by looking at books, by, looking at a page in a book and saying, that colour's, what's that colour? That colour's red. What colour's that? That colour's blue, whatever. But that's a very static thing, because although they will eventually learn, everybody eventually learns their colours, but the learning process from actually physically going to find a toy and bring it and then talking about the toy, the practicalities involved in doing that, the handling of it, the feel of it is so much more beneficial than just pointing to a colour on a page. This was such a fun activity. We used to have a lot of fun with this, and eventually it would get to the stage when we might throw the dice, and we'd both say, who's the first one to find a yellow toy? We'd both rush around and be the first one back to get a yellow toy. So I might come back with this, I'd come back with that, and you'd say, we've both got yellows, great. Now, can you tell me something? Let's look at this toy. Okay, this might be made of plastic, this is made of rubber. Every single object has certain properties. All sorts of different properties, what they're made out of. Plastic, rubber, wood, wool, cardboard, metal, that's a property of an object. They also have different weights. Some are heavier than some are lighter than, some are smooth, that's a property, some have got sort of little dimples on them, some are bigger, some are smaller. So when you have an object with you, you might have initially just been talking about colour, but you introduce very slowly, very gradually, not all at once, but ask them to feel it. That's a nice smooth surface. We say that's a smooth surface, and then feel that. That's a very sort of rough, dimply sort of surface, isn't it? So you're introducing in your conversations language, and this is the language of maths. Everything has properties, and things like a rough surface, which might be dimply. I mean, dimply is not a mathematical term, but it's a way of describing something, and that's a legitimate way of describing something. So that's the game. Now, I do plan to develop this game by introducing a second dice, but I'm going to do that on another day.